I want to share a couple things with you, and thank you, Melanie, for reading God's Word today through Exodus. And some of the things in regards to my thoughts today came with the words, what if? Ever pondered that word, thought about those things in your life? What if? And I know there's a quote here that someone had shared. It doesn't give credit to who it was, but it says, what and if are two words as non-threatening as words can be. But put them together side by side, and they have the power to haunt you for the rest of your life. But I thought, well, I don't want it to haunt me. I don't want it to haunt you. There's too many ifs. I think there's a lot of different things that we want to look at. There's also Marco Zunica says, don't live your life through the what ifs, live it with the I knows. I like that. We're going to talk a little bit about that today. But as I was looking at the what ifs, I thought, well, let me go online because they give us all kinds of funny little things or some wisdom to look at. So I looked up some things that what ifs. And not the what ifs, because a lot of times the what ifs kind of can paralyze us, right? It's like we're wishing about what may or may not have happened. But here's some extra kind of things just to think about. Not that it might have been true or not. What if you could communicate with animals? What would that be? Or what would they say to you, right? What if you could travel in time to the future and meet your future selves? Back to the Future, right? We've seen that kind of movie. What if you could have never-ending supply of chocolate? Now, am I talking to people here? All right, I got your attention. You're like, all right, yeah. You can choose whatever, milk or dark. We talked about that, right? Okay. What if everything you touch turned to gold, right? We've heard that story. Ooh. What if every time, this is a funny one. I just throw it in here. What if every time you burped, you fainted? Okay, I'm just reading it. I'm off the paper, right? It's not me. So I thought, okay. What if you hit your head and could suddenly speak any language? That'd be cool, wouldn't it? I'd like that. What if you could breathe underwater? Yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be cool. Yeah, you like that? All right. What if you could be a character in a computer game? Yeah, all right. Got some nods up there. This one I don't like. What if spiders were 10 feet tall? Oh, nope, don't want to do that. Let's see, what if you could go back in time at any point in your life? What if dinosaurs were alive today? What if fast food was good for your health? All right, yeah, see? Different things to think about. Here's another one. What if you could say a sentence what the whole world could hear? What would you say? Something to ponder, right? Okay, this one I don't like. It goes with the spider things as well. It says, what if instead of police dogs, there were giant man-sized police spiders? I know, right? What? I know it doesn't make sense. This is the what ifs, right? It's way out there. What if electricity wasn't invented? How would your life be different? Yeah, quite a bit, right? What if you could go to space? Would you do it? Think about that. What if you could only drink one beverage for the rest of your life? Some of you already know that, our Diet Cokes, different places over there, right? Some places. What if there were no weekends? Yeah. What if I gave you a surprise haircut? No, we'll pass, right? Okay, so those are some fun things to think about. Those are the what ifs. To have a thought. When your mind races with endless what ifs, pause and ground yourself in the now. This is what GraceMastered.com had said. Overthinking steals the beauty of today. Let go and let the simplicity of the present guide you. But I wanted to change the last piece of saying, let go and let God guide you. Isn't that even better? Sometimes we get so caught up in the things that we don't know. We get caught up in the what ifs. But a lot of the things that come into that paralyze us in the what ifs can be, what if it rains? What if it snows? What if it's too hot, too cold, too windy? All those kind of things, right? I don't know what I'm going to do with my day. What if I'm by myself? What if I'm alone? What if the car breaks down? What if the tree falls, the street floods, trip or fall? My kids bite another kid, pull their hair. Oh my goodness. They like me, they don't like me. There's a lot of what ifs, right, that we ponder and think about in our own lives. What if it comes in the wrong size, wrong color, wrong package? It comes too early, it comes too late. The phone dies, and oh my goodness, if you don't have Wi-Fi, right? Oh my goodness, right? Now we're really in trouble. There's a lot of what ifs that can provide fear and anxiety. But today I thought, why not think about this? Think about things a little differently. How about we think about what we know? And I think the affirmations of that is something very important for us to think about. What do we know? We know that God always keeps his promises, doesn't he? We see that through Numbers 23:19. We know that God created us and knows us. God chose us in Psalms, is always with us in Deuteronomy 31:8. God never forgets us. I love that. Sometimes we think that he loses us and we don't know what's going on. He has no idea what's going on in my life when in fact he knows all, right? Those are some things, what we know. But it goes on and on. God has plans to prosper us and give us hope in Jeremiah 29. God strengthens us and helps us in Isaiah 41. God fights for us. And there's many verses from Exodus, Deuteronomy, Nehemiah, 2 Corinthians, and on about things about what we know. God protects us from the evil one. I love that, don't you? 2 Thessalonians 3:3. God provides a way out of temptation, 1 Corinthians 10:13. I think if we start thinking about things in that way instead of what ifs, the things that kind of paralyze us, we definitely can affirm and know about what we know. Now, the scripture this morning shares a lot of different things, and that's where we're going to jump back into where we are with that. And you kind of keep that in parallel of this scripture about where God is speaking to Moses. And we've been on that journey, and as we've been trekking through the mountains, and as we've been talking about Moses, it's such a pivotal piece to us. For the last couple Sundays, and talking about how Moses has been so pivotal to the church and how he loves and teaching about to his people. We see a lot of things, and we have to find out his character, and we find out a little bit about our character as well, don't we? If we look at this chapter. So we drop into this chapter 4, and it says Moses answered. And you're wondering, what is he answering to? You go back to chapter 3, and as Moses is talking, or God is talking to Moses, and he says to him in verse 10, "So now go. I'm sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt." So that's the challenge. And he says, Moses answered, "What if?" Right? He goes right there. His mind is in that situation. What if? But what if they don't know me? What if they don't believe or listen to me or say, "The Lord did not appear to you"? Now, we would probably be some of those, we could be in that same group, couldn't we? We could. If someone said, "I saw the Lord," and you say, "Prove it. Show it to me. Tell me about what this is." And a lot of times I think we would be a little open to that, but we probably might be a little skeptical. So I don't think that's a wrong thing for Moses to ask that. Then the Lord said to him, and I love it, he finds him right where he is. In this situation where God talks to his people, sometimes we like to think about, well, what I'm going to get perceived. What's the future going to look like? I don't know, because I'd really love to know, wouldn't we? We'd like to know what would happen because we can kind of be prepared for the next step. But I see that God always reaches his people for the here and now. And he talks to him and he says, "Hey, Moses, what's that in your hand?" He's like, "Oh, it's a rod or a staff." Something he's used constantly over and over and over, right in the fields. He's tending the sheep. So he knows what it is in that situation. He said, "What's that in your hand?" He said, "A staff." And this is where the thing comes into the whole perspective. And he just says, "All right, throw it on the ground." Moses could be like, he's like, "Well, how am I going to use it that way," right? Could easily have thought that. But he throws it on the ground. And for us, for me, my staff is laying on the ground. But the supernatural, the God of the universe, the God sees him in that moment, turns this into a snake. Now, Moses has been taking care of sheep for quite some time, right? So he's probably seen snakes, little snakes, other things he can kind of shoo away. I'm guessing this is like a huge snake. Like Melanie would say, "I'm out," right? Not going to happen. I'm not going to do that. You're asking me. But he says, "Okay. That's nice and wonderful, Lord, and I'm figuring just go ahead and turn it back into a staff. That'd be great. I'll pick it back up." This is a test for Moses as well, and he says, "All right, go pick it up." Okay. It shows his obedience. It shows his opportunity, and he says, "Okay, go grab it by the tail," which is not a great place to grab a snake, right? If you know about snakes, that's a great thing. You grab there, they'll spin around. They could easily come back at you at that situation. But God's saying, "Do you trust me?" He finds him in that moment. And I think that's what he's trying to ask you and me. He's like, "All right, We don't know how he approached it, whatever it was. It says he grabbed it by the tail. And it turned back into a staff. This is the God that we know. This is the God of the universe. This is the God of the Bible and the scriptures that we live and breathe and need to trust and understand who he is. And he's saying to Moses, I got you. This is a sign that they'll be able to believe and answer his question. But he even goes further and says over and over, he says, reach your hand and take it by the tail in that situation, and it turns back into a snake. Then the Lord said, put your hand inside your cloak. So Moses put his hand in his cloak and pulled it out, and it was leprous. Two different situations here where God talks about transformation, and I love that. And he's kind of sharing with his people, and he's saying that things are going to be different, but they're going to trust me because I am something bigger and grander than anyone can imagine. I'm trying to rescue, and I've heard the cries of my people, and I want you to be able to follow and do what I need you to do, but I need you to be faithful and obedient. I need you to trust and obey the things that we've already been singing about today. God says, I need you to do that. But where do we find ourselves? Do we find ourselves in the same situation as Moses sometimes? Okay, that's a snake, Lord. I'll leave it over there. I'll go find another staff. I'll bring it off the tree. Whatever it might, we might find some other reasons, but God has asked Moses to step into the fray, to do something that he would never know and could never imagine. He shows as he puts his hand back in his cloak, pulls it back out, it then becomes restored like new. This is not a magician. Some people think this is a nice little toy, little game. This is about God saying, I want to show you. And I'm going to show my people who need to be able to see something in that moment that I'm a God who has seen them, will restore them, and will provide for them in that situation. I love it in that situation that God even goes further. In verse 8, he says, the Lord said, and if they do not believe you or pay attention to the first sign, they may believe the second. And this is where God gets to say a but if or what if. But he says, you know what? I'm already thinking ahead of that. What if they don't believe these two signs and listen to you? Take some water from the Nile, pour it on the ground. The water you take from the river will become blood on the ground. The first time God gives an opportunity for them to understand that they can make a choice, to be transformed, to see those things transformed, and knowing about God that's doing it. This is an opportunity where God shares to them. This is a judgment. I need you to follow me. You need to release my people, to let them go, because this is an opportunity that God can provide, and we know the rest of the story about the plagues and other kind of things that Pharaoh's heart was hardened to not let them go. The piece of the story as well here in verse 10 says, Moses said to the Lord, even after all of that, and I think it's just amazing, he's already come up to a burning bush that didn't burn all the way up, right? He's talking to God physically and those kind of situations, and he's taken off his feet because he's on holy ground. In all these situations, he's in the presence of God, and God's saying, I need you to go do this. And what's Moses' response? Pardon your servant, Lord. I've never been eloquent, neither in the past nor in spoken to your servant. I am slow to speech and of tongue. And I love this part about the Lord. First, obviously Moses is looking on himself. I can't do this. I can't speak well. Who is he speaking to? Who's he speaking to? God. He's actually speaking to God, the creator of the universe, the God who knew Moses in his mother's womb. He knew what was going on. And all of a sudden he's saying to Moses, I need you to speak for my people. Oh, well, Lord, I can't speak. I can't speak well. There's a lot of reasons that we could kind of do that, but God knows it. And in doing so, he's asking in some ways, is saying, God, did you make a mistake? Did you ask the wrong person? And I don't know about you. I don't want to get into that kind of situation. We never want to get to that side because God sees, and he sees you and me, and he knows exactly who we are, and he knows the giftedness and the excitement of the skill sets and everything that you bring to the table. And if God speaks to you, I want to hear it. Don't you? I want to listen to it, and I want to be able to say, God, you chose me. That's humbling in itself. I've shared that over and over. I'm still humbled that I'm a young Indiana boy that God says, okay, Steve, I want to use you and to share in ministry. Why me? I don't know. But he said, will you be faithful? I'll give you the words to speak. I'll share. You'll be able to share the stories and the things that you've been a part of, but will you be my spokesman? I've never regretted a day in my life just once I said yes to the Lord. Have there been challenges? Oh, absolutely. But the blessings outweigh that. I know that my God goes before me. I know that my God shares to you and to me that he says, I've got you. Too often in my life, I've always thought before that I was all alone, that I could do it all by myself, or I didn't know how to do it, but I was going to find it out, and me and my world was going to make it happen. My own illustration, my own testimony in a number of ways, and I'll share more in greater depths, but where God rescued me physically a number of times, physically from drowning. But one instance, I was about ready and in a situation in college and doing stuff that I shouldn't be doing. And God saw me, continued to see me. And in a situation where I was on an old railroad trestle, where it was turned into a road late at night off across the Wabash River, and we hopped off the trail. Don't everybody listen to this. Don't everybody do this in college or other stuff. But anyway, we stopped, we hopped down, we got down on the big cement pillar, and we just sat there and watched the river and everything else to that point. Not in the state of mind that I should do, but the guy was with me, a couple of guys that were there. They decided to light this box on fire, which is actually the box that we were, once again, I'm not very proud of this, drinking from some beer from a little 12-pack. Lit that on fire, and we watched it burn as it came down this way. Me not being in the state of mind where I was at, said, hey, I want to see that. But I didn't step all the way off. I got way out to here to see it down to that point. Nothing that I can do. The guy that was with me all of a sudden grabbed the back of my pants and flew me back onto the railroad. I asked him later, the next morning, he has no recollection of it whatsoever. Didn't know what had happened. I knew what happened. I wish I would have, you'd think that would have just been enough for me to be restored and understood and knowing where God says, hey, thick skull, right? I got this. And he had to save my life physically a number of other times, and I'll share that later at another time. But in that situation, I realized that in my wherewithal, I went all in to say, I want to watch this, and I had no control. But God says, I see you, Steve. I need you, Steve. I'm going to save your life if you let me. Physically, yes, but more so spiritually, that I had to give my life back to the Lord and let him use me in that moment. And I stand here today, not because of anything that I do, because of a God who says, I want to use you. I want to use your life. And he's calling you and me the same way. And as Moses says, I don't know. I don't have these kind of situations. I don't have enough wherewithal. God already knows what he has. I don't have the skill set, but God does. God says to you and to me, I see where you're at. He says, who gave human beings their mouths? Who makes them deaf or mute? Who gives them sight or makes them blind? It is not I. Isn't it I, the Lord? He changes all Moses' I statements and says, what about me? I'm the God of the universe. I'm the God who put all these in place. Now go. I will help you speak and teach what you say. We learn from this situation that Moses continues to go on and he continues to push. And this is the danger of that situation. And we see where God's anger comes about. He wasn't angry about all these other questions because they were valid to that point. But in this situation with Moses, he got to the point that it wasn't that he wasn't able to do it. We see in this situation, we found out where Moses was unwilling to do it. You see the difference? Sometimes we think, I'm not capable. When deep down in our hearts, no, I could do it. I could do it. I don't know how far I can go. But what God, if you're asking me, I'm willing to go. And this is where the anger of the Lord comes out. He's like, I know that you can do it. I see you can do it. I know how you can speak and not speak and what you're going to do. Trust me in this situation because I'll fulfill that. We see the blessing here, but blessing and curse in some ways further on, that God does provide Aaron to speak for him, but Moses is still a spokesperson. Moses has to be the one to share with Aaron about what these words are, and we know later, don't we, about what Aaron did. was a mutiny against Moses. Aaron was also the one that helped build the calf. There's a lot of things that I don't think was originally in the plan if God said, Moses, I need you. You need to be able to do this. We have to remember and be careful of what we may ask and what God may answer. And I challenge myself and I challenge you in what we know. But what do we know about God? What do we know about Jesus? This is the stuff I'm holding on to, and I want you to hold on to. Jesus Christ is the Son of God, as in John 10:36, Luke 22, it says it over and over. He's the great doctor. He's healed people. He's become our Savior. Jesus gives himself of truly so many things. I am who I am in Exodus 3:14, but Jesus alluded to that in John 8:58. Jesus said to them, truly, truly, I say to you, before Abraham was born, I am. This is the God of the universe. This is Jesus. He says about himself, Jesus says to them, I am the bread of life. This is what we know. He who comes to me will not hunger. He who believes in me will never thirst. John 6:35 and 36. He also says, I'm the light of the world. Jesus spoke again, I am the light of the world. He who follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have light of life. He talks about being the door to the sheep, talking about being the good shepherd, the resurrection and the life, the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. And the last one he shares in John 15:5, he says, I am the vine. You are the branches. He who abides in me and I in him, he bears much fruit. And apart from me, you can do nothing. These are the things that we know. These are the things that we need to live by and understand. Do you agree? Do you agree that the God of the universe is also talking to you? He sees you right where you are. He knows exactly what's going on in your life, and he says, do you trust me? And if I ask you to go, will you go? Will you grab a staff that's turned into a huge snake and trust me that I will be your God? That's the God I serve. That's the God we serve. That's the God we should be coming to church and say, God, use me. So this morning, the challenge is to us, and a number of questions I'll ask you, what is God calling you to do? What is he calling you to do? I can say a number of things, but you have a personal relationship and you know what he's doing and he's sharing with you. And he says, what is he calling you to do? Because I want to tell you, and you must know, he has and will equip you to do it. Do you believe that? Because he will. He won't ask you to do something that he hasn't already prepared you to do and go ahead of you for the greater good. He's asking you and I, what do you have in your hand? This morning, you know exactly what you have. You really do. I mean, Moses had the staff. He found him right where he was. But he knows what you're holding. He knows your gifts and your skills. He knows how you can sing. He knows how you can make food. We got pasties. We got all kinds of stuff that God says, will you let me use this for my good, for my kingdom? And he's only asking you and I to say, these skills of mine, I appreciate them. I understand what it is. I don't know what it might mean, so something bigger, but God says, will you give them to me? I gave them to you. But will you give them to me that it might be a blessing to maybe someone in your family, maybe in your circle of influence, the friends at school or at work, and all of a sudden something that you thought that was my little gift and my little skill all of a sudden has been a blessing to somebody else. Hearing the piano this morning, Tim and I spoke, and I was like, I can't do that. Would love to, but what a blessing of music as I sit here and I reflect on God working through that music, and we come into the throne room, coming into church today. God asks you and me, what do you have in your hands? And will you allow him to use it? Or will you, like Moses in some situations here, give excuses? We're good at that. We might not like to say we are, But we are pretty quick to give an excuse of something we feel uncomfortable to step out of our comfort zone to kind of do. Or you want to barter your way out of it. That's on you, that's on me. I've done it. But I think the bigger question is, will we be obedient? Will we trust? Will we trust God in the moment, in this moment, in that moment, and what he's calling you to do, to say, yes, Lord. I don't know why you would. I don't know how it's going to work or how it's going to happen, but I trust you.